Yasher Koach, Shabbat Shalom, friends. Yasher Koach to the band. We're getting revved up next week for Beatles Shabbat. So we're in a good groove. We're getting really excited for that. I'm excited for Ella's Bat Mitzvah and Mazel Tov to the whole family. So last week I made a very spontaneous decision. You might even call it spur the moment. I apologize, it gets better from here. So it was about 3:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday in the Agudis office, and I overheard our wonderful co-worker, Jennifer Ross, mention how excited she was to go to Game 6 of the Spurs conference final against Oklahoma City. Her mention of going to the game started to infect my brain a little bit, and the next thing I knew, I was on StubHub on my phone to see how much a ticket would cost to see the Spurs that evening. I found that it was not cheap. However, some of the upper level tickets, while not inexpensive, seemed reasonable for a playoff game, and I had never been to a playoff game for any professional sports team, I realized. So I took a breath, picked one of the cheapest seats available, and bought the ticket. Now, Jennifer was not the only one to be excited to go to Game 6. Where'd it go? I arrived through traffic, of course. I parked, walked about a mile to get to the stadium, entered, headed up the escalator, then climbed up the 12 rows of the upper level of section 331, which, because of how steep it is up there, I always feel like it's way more than 12 rows high. Everyone in my row, it turned out, was already settled, so I had to do the awkward thing and make everyone stand up as I shuffled to my seat in the middle of the row, hoping not to trip on one of their feet and plummet to my death as I did so. But once I settled in and the game began, it was worth the price of admission. The Spurs started out hot in the first quarter with a strings of three-pointers, putting them up by double digits. That lead, for the most part, didn't narrow much for the whole game, a little bit at halftime. And in fact, it got much wider at the end of the game. Wemby and company were on fire, making long-range shots, executing plays, and most of all, shutting down OKC with their amazing defense. The final score was 118-91, a 27-point victory to tie the series 3-3. And as we now know, they went on to Oklahoma for Game 7 and played a much closer contest, but the fourth quarter proved decisive. Luke Cornett blocked Oklahoma City's Isaiah Hardenstein at the rim, denying a fast break score that would have gotten the Thunder within 4. Yes, I did steal that sentence from ESPN. From that point forward, the defense denied the Thunder over and over again with a final score, Spurs 111 to OKC 103. The Spurs were going to the finals. I assumed it must have been because I moved to San Antonio this year. But then, this past Wednesday, in the first game of the NBA Finals, with the wind in their sails, things didn't go as well. While playing a great first 3 quarters, they choked in the fourth, not being able to hit their shots or deny the shots of the Knicks. It was a blow to the city to lose Game 1 at home, to watch the likes of Timothy Chalamet, Spike Lee, and Ben Stiller high-five each other and celebrate in our house only made the pain worse. But tonight, we hope for better. We know the Spurs have been studying, practicing, readjusting based on their loss and will be ready to come back and make some adjustments to win Game 2 at home. Now, it's a bit inconsiderate that they had to play it on Shabbos, but nevertheless, we're still directing our prayers to our black and silver champs for a second chance at victory. Second chances can be hard to come by in adulthood, especially. Often you only seem to get one shot to prove your mettle, whether it be in a job interview, on a date, doing a time-dependent mitzvah, or reading your bat mitzvah haftorah. Don't worry, Ella, you're a star and we have your back. But sometimes people or circumstances or God are forgiving and open enough to allow space for a second opportunity to show what you're made of. In our Parsha this week, Beha'alotecha, Israel celebrates the first Passover outside of Egypt. But quickly there's a problem. A group of people are tameh, not fit to offer the Passover on the 14th of Nisan, having been in contact with someone who died. Rather than giving up, they come to Moshe, they tell their story, and ask for a second chance to offer this highly significant sacrifice, representing their protection in Egypt as they prepared for freedom. They felt it was unfair to only have one shot to celebrate this important festival. They wanted to be able to obey God's command and still feel a part of the community. So Moses, realizing that they may have a point here, goes to check in with God about what to do for these people. And God, in response, offers not resistance or rebuke, but rather a second chance. God commands that exactly a month later, on the 14th of Iyar, they can offer the Passover sacrifice in all its specifics, and it will be accepted by God as if they offered it in Nisan. As the Israelites entered this second year in the wilderness and encountered the festivals anew, people for the first time in the Torah raise a fair challenge to the commandments. It's the first moment that people seem to be in conversation with God and not merely accepting or breaking God's command. And what they're asking for is a second chance to do an act that is pleasing before God and makes them feel a part of the people Israel. You may even say a part of Team Yisrael. And tonight, the Spurs and all of San Antonio are asking for a second chance. We don't want to be judged on our first attempt at victory. We want a second chance to show the world that we have what it takes to shut down the Knicks and be NBA champions. So rather than giving up, assuming the first game will determine their destiny, they're going to have to let go of game one. They're going to have to shake it off and perform in this second game almost as if the first game never happened. They will need to prove themselves on the court and let New York know that the series is far from over. So tonight, I think, is kind of like our local Pesach Sheni, second Pesach. We can't let the first game define our destiny, take us out of contention. Instead, we will find in this game too that second chances are not just an occasional possibility, but a fulfillment of our destiny. We can't give up hope just because the first attempt didn't work out. Our Parsha teaches us that it is the people's initiative that makes the second chance possible. It's a refusal by these people to give up on God, on the commandments, and on their place in the community. So too, the Spurs and the entire Spurs nation need to come into this game and the rest of this series demanding our second chance, insisting that nothing is set in stone. Even God's law is reactive to human needs. We forge our destiny, and God wants it that way. So unfortunately, I won't be at the game tonight. I know you thought I might be going. If Game 6 of the conference final was not cheap, ticket prices for Game 2 of the finals are completely beyond my comprehension, and certainly my budget. I personally also am not going to watch it tonight due to Shabbat. But I'll be praying that they show up on this second game like a team possessed, not willing to let their second chance pass. I don't know if God roots for the Spurs or any team, but I know God roots for second chances. Shabbat Shalom, and go Spurs, go!